What's going on, guys? This is Bradley. That's Zach in the middle. That's Dawson on your right. And you're listening to the Charm City Sideline podcast. Today, we are going to be continuing our draft preview positional series, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to be talking about offensive line. It's going to be mainly guards because after the extension of Ronnie Stanley, the Ravens don't exactly need a tackle. There's not exactly a dire need of tackle. We might talk about a little bit of tackles on day 3, some developmental guys that we're thinking about. But other than that, it's mainly going to be guards to possibly start over Voorhees or Flele or compete with them. So, I guess we'll get right into it, guys. I'm going to have us start off with Tyler Booker, who is sort of the consensus number 1 guard coming out of Alabama. He is coming out as a junior, 6'5", 321, 34.5-inch arms, 2-year starter, team captain for the Crimson Tide. Before I get into my thoughts, I'll kick it to Dawson. I know you're a big Booker fan. So, yeah.
Yeah, this has kind of been one of my pipe dreams for a while now going into the draft. I just think the odds of the Ravens, sitting there at 27 with Tyler Booker on the board is pretty good. I think he will be there. I think there's a pretty good chance. And I think, if you think about an offensive guard blue chip prospect from Alabama, the Ravens specifically obviously have that pipeline in recent history of the Ozzie Newsome-led Ravens of Alabama players always lining up in the purple and black. And I think this year, the Ravens have a chance to go out here and really kind of fortify and build a wall in front of Lamar and Derrick Henry, which I think would benefit this team in so many ways. Of course, we all know this. And I think, if you can insert a guy like Tyler Booker into that, front five, it could legitimately campaign for the best offensive line we've had since really under Lamar, you could say. It could definitely be an argument. And I think Tyler Booker is an immediate day 1 starter. You plug him in at right guard, and you're probably going to plug in Voorhees at left. It'll probably be a little ongoing guard battle throughout camp and stuff. But I think if you draft Tyler Booker, you're getting a guy who's very physical. His point of attack, he's very physical. He's aggressive, and he kind of enforces his will. I think that it would fit the mentality of the Ravens very well. I think it would just be amazing to kind of plug him in and not worry about that position, then basically focus elsewhere. Because in a world where the Ravens don't address guard in round 1 or in a way of a trade or some random, cut free agent that they sign, after the draft, I think that you're going to go into the season with Daniel Flele at right guard and Voorhees at left. And I don't think we want to see that again. But Tyler Booker, man, I mean, this guy is he's pretty big. He's, like I say, he's very physical, and he's just a great player. And I think that the Ravens could go out here, and I know there's other needs, of course, but I think we can all agree that offensive line guard specifically, of course, is probably the second biggest need outside of edge. But I think this could very easily be a pick at 27, and I'm a huge fan if that's the route they go.
And what's so enticing about Booker is that he's not only the best guard available, but he's also the best NFL-ready run blocker. He has a high pick ability just because he played left tackle for a short stint with Bama. And really the only red flag I saw was issues keeping up with like fast rushers. So maybe like edge guys, but that was really whenever he was just as a tackle. So everything interior-wise seemed fantastic. And any run blocking at all, it was obvious he's the best in the draft for it. So whenever Dawson said it, I think 2 days ago, perfectly, it's the most impactful player that you can draft really in the first round because he's going to play no matter what. If you go a secondary guy, he might be the third option. So he might be, getting snaps, but not as much as a first round starting guard. And I think Booker's the default best guard in the draft. So whenever you think about the opportunity for the Ravens to go guard instead of secondary, instead of edge, instead of interior D-line, no matter what, when it comes to Booker specifically too, he is going to play if he is in a Ravens uniform after the first night.
Yeah. My only thoughts to add on Booker, just some things I saw on tape. I think he's like elite in pass pro. I think he's slightly worse in the run game, but that's like not a knock at all. I think he's amazing in pass pro. Like Zach said, a Mason Graham he can struggle against, but other than that, pretty solid. He looks athletic on tape. He had a really bad combine, which is interesting. his 10-yard split at his pro day was a lot better than his combine, so he improved on that a little bit. Like, he seems athletic enough on tape to me. A lot of people are saying that he is more fit for a gap scheme than a zone scheme. As we all know, the Ravens with Todd Monken have sort of gone more of a half and half approach, especially with Derrick Henry running all the stretches and things like that, mixed in with power and counter. But, I think he's athletic enough to play in a zone scheme as well, especially with the Ravens who don't do it all the time. I think on tape he looks slightly less nimble maybe and agile than Jackson and Zabel. But he has really, really long arms. I think 34.5-inch. If Falele can do it, Tyler Booker definitely can. So I'm not really too concerned about that. And last thing, something I found interesting, Lance Zierlein's comp for him was John Simpson, who played here for a little bit.
Wow.
So I thought that was interesting.
I just think it's such a safe pick. And when you think about round one, obviously your immediate concern is if this guy can come in day one and get starter reps and be a beneficial player who actually impacts a team in a positive way. And I think when you look at offensive line, a lot of times, there's in recent years too, especially, there's a lot of offensive lines going off board around one. And this year, it's really Tyler Booker is the only interior guy who's pretty much across the board mocked in round one at every mock draft. And we're going to get into these next couple of guys, but these guys have also been mocked heavily amounts of times in day two. Or round two, I'm sorry. Well, day two. But I think Booker's the only one that's consistently up there. I think there's even mock drafts out there where he's like 20 to 25 range. So he could go earlier and we don't even get the chance to get him. But I think it's a very safe pick. I don't think Baltimore would fail by taking him. I don't think there's a world out there where he comes in and he legitimately fails or bombs away. I think he's immediately your day one starter at right guard. And I think it builds this wall and it puts that anchor in the offensive line that they're kind of lacking right now in that spot. And I think it'd be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I like Booker a lot. But I will say I have someone else at my number one spot for guards. I texted you guys this morning. I don't know how to rank these three guys because I love all of them. I kept switching them. So I will say these guys 1 through 3, it's like that much, if at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I did go with Donovan Jackson as my number one guard.
Wow.
From Ohio State, senior, 6'4", 315, 33.5-inch arms. So Jackson was a 5-star recruit. He was the number one guard coming out in his high school class. Like I said, I think he's a little bit more athletic on tape than Booker. Both of them have high IQs. Zabel has very high IQ as well. I think Jackson is great in space, leading the way on pulls, counters, screens. I think he's good at identifying stunts. Booker is as well. I think he has some correctable weaknesses, pad height, hand placement, footwork at times. I noticed when he's out in space, he's always looking for someone to block, which, again, most of the guys that you're going to be drafting in round one all have high effort, high IQ. I feel like with the Ravens, we've been used to some guards in the past who are not like this, who don't play like this. I think Jackson is slightly more athletic than Booker. And also one note on Jackson. So Josh Simmons, who's also probably going to be a first-round pick as a tackle, left tackle for Ohio State, tore his patella tendon halfway through the 2024 season. Donovan Jackson moved out to left tackle.
Pretty cool.
And he was awesome. Like, he was really good at left tackle. So I think that was really cool. And just like knowing that now he has that position versatility, I have him slightly above Booker. I would love both of them at 27. If they're both there and the Ravens go with Booker, like, I would be excited. But I do have a slight edge for Jackson.
I think it's a pretty well-known thing that the Ravens love the versatility, especially across the offensive line, especially losing a guy like Patrick McCary this offseason, who obviously wasn't, a fantastic player by any means, but he was here for quite a bit and he served us well. And I think that, the Ravens are obviously going to go out this offseason and try to replace that kind of facet across the offensive line. And with Donovan Jackson, you're getting a guy that does that. You're getting a guy that can play anywhere, basically, you throw him. He's had experience all across the board. And this is a big guy who's very athletic. And I think that's another guy. Like you said, Brad, I don't quite agree. I think I'm a Tyler Booker fan over Donovan Jackson, but it's not by a wide margin. By no means necessary. If he is the pick at 27, I wouldn't be absolutely thrilled. Depends on who's there at other positions, of course. But if he's the pick over Tyler Booker, I'd be quite mad. But either way, you're going to get a good player who you can insert day one. And that's all that matters really for this team right now, is going out and finding a guy who fits your scheme, fits the athleticism you're looking for, provides the versatility, and basically can fill that gap from day one. And that's all you really need when you're looking as far as taking a interior offensive lineman round one.
And I love that you said Jackson's your number one, because I have him as my 3. I have Zabel cutting him out by a bit, but Jackson was good. I thought that he wasn't like a perfect Raven fit. Like the guys that are almost too versatile, I worry about, because if we're going to have them like real confident going into the draft as if they could be a tackle and then moving them to guard, we've had issues with that, maybe with an Orlando Brown or maybe with other teams in the past. So I think that I wasn't sold on Jackson. I think his footwork was the biggest red flag to me. I think his like quick move awareness, getting hands on pads, was a little intimidating. So I had him at my 3 only because someone like Zabel showed me the opposite.
Yeah, it's funny. It looks like we all have different rankings for the guards as far as round one.
Yeah, I don't completely disagree with everything you guys said. But yeah, I do think the Ravens and most people probably like Booker the most.
I feel like it's a growing, not concern, I don't know what word I'm looking for. It's a growing, idea that the Ravens very well could take an offensive lineman round one. I feel like in recent days, even weeks, I've seen a lot more of the Ravens flock, especially guys who are kind of involved in sports media, kind of mocking these guys to the Ravens, whether it's round one or round two. It's kind of been in every little mock draft. Because this time of year, of course, you get all the big mock gurus pumping out their mock drafts, and almost like every single one I've seen, there's some sort of offensive lineman coming to Baltimore within the first 3 rounds. So I just saw one earlier. I forget who it was. They had tackle, a guy who can play multiple positions. I forget the name. Once we get into this, I'll remember. But he was coming to Baltimore round 2. So it's definitely a growing idea amongst the team.
Yeah. It'll be interesting because I do feel like the way the Ravens have treated offensive line recently, it almost seems like they don't think guard is that important. But we'd be thrilled if they took one.
Right.
So my number 3 guard, who, like I said, I was considering putting him at 1. Like these 3 were so hard to rank for me. Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State, 5th-year senior. He could have transferred to a bigger school, gotten more money. For his 5th season, he stayed at North Dakota State. 6'6", 312, 32-inch arms. He played tackle at North Dakota State. His arm length, I believe, is about the same as Will Campbell, who people are having some concerns, which is why, Zabel's probably going to end up being a guard in the NFL. So the main thing with Zabel is he's extremely athletic, completely dominated, like 99 percentile athlete for an offensive lineman. But he played at North Dakota State, right? So it's hard to assess how good he's going to be. What I will say is, like, at the Senior Bowl, he dominated every single player that attacked him. But, like, the reason I ended up having him at 3 is because I don't want to put that much weight into the Senior Bowl. He did prove that he's not a mismatch for these guys. But it's just like it's 1 day, 2 days of practice. And I just didn't want to put a ton of weight into that. I think he's a first-round pick, in my opinion. I think he's going to be a good player. Maybe looks a little small compared to Booker and Jackson. He's 6'6", but like only 312. But like this guy is so fluid. I think he's going to be really, really good.
Zach, I'm gonna let you take this one away, man.
Yeah, Zabel, like everything about him was well polished. It looks like he can be dropped into an NFL offense and he's ready to go. I loved that any notes I found on him about red flags were his arm length, which made me think of Linderbaum, maybe other offensive linemen in the past. And that basically just, goes in one ear, out the other. I think that he could be an NFL caliber starting guard. I have high hopes for him. He was my 2 behind Booker, and everything he showed me was impressive, I think.
Yeah, this is another one of those guys who, he had a great Senior Bowl, and Baltimore loves their Senior Bowl players. That's another track record that goes back tail old as time. So the Ravens are definitely looking at that heavily. This guy's known for his competitive toughness. He has grit. He's a big time competitor. He's a very physical player. I know one knock on him was his hand placement at the point of attack. But that's something that obviously can be easily corrected. This is a guy that, like Brad said, he kind of may look a little smaller than he really is. There might be a little bit of size concerns, but we've all had our fair share of that with the Tyler Linderbaum selection, and that has obviously turned out fantastic for the Ravens. So I don't think that's something to look too much into. I don't think that's a knack on his play, because his play is off the charts. Like Brad also mentioned, he's an incredible athlete. This is one of those guys that's definitely probably going to slip into the later parts of round 1. At the very latest, maybe early parts of round 2. Like, there's no way this guy's going to slip. So if he's there at 27, who knows? There's also a world out there where he can go even earlier. I would not even in the slightest be completely shocked if he was the first guard off the board. There's a world out there where this could happen. So I think that's another selection, the Ravens heavily have to consider at 27, especially if he's sitting there and the other guys are gone. You kind of have that last, attack, I guess you could say, at, possibly getting an elite prospect at that position, to turn into. So I don't know. This is another guy that I would be pretty happy with getting him. As far as the top 3, he's probably my number 2 behind Tyler Booker, just in front of Jackson. But again, these are all 3 guys that are going to be round 1 selections at the very latest, early round 2. And these guys are all going to be really good players at the next level. And I'm super excited to see where they wind up. Hopefully one of them is in Baltimore.
Yeah, I'm obviously completely aware of my opinion on Jackson. He probably will be more of an early second round guy. But since I don't think either of you guys watched this person, this guy is my number 5 guard, but I'm going to talk about him right here, and then we'll get into Bo. But my number 5 guard is Jonah Savainaya out of Arizona. I made sure to look up the pronunciation. I think I said it right.
Attaboy.
So this guy's going to be sort of in the conversation at 59 for the Ravens. He played tackle mainly at Arizona. He played right guard as a freshman, started 12 games there, but basically played right tackle ever since then. Played left tackle for a little bit this past season. He's 6'4", 324, 33 and 7/8 arms. Obviously, versatility is another factor here. He's played guard. He's played tackle. He's probably going to be a guard in the NFL. He actually said himself he wants to play guard in the NFL. I feel like that's something that's kind of rare. Usually these guys want to try to stay at tackle. So I think that's pretty cool that he said that. He can sometimes have trouble against bull rushes, but I think that's more of a technique thing because he's really strong and he's really big. He has the ability to get out in space. Arizona runs a lot of mid screens where the wide receiver kind of runs in and the offensive linemen, like 3 offensive linemen, run out and try to block people. And he looked really good doing that, in my opinion. I think he's going to be a pretty good starting guard. I would be fine with him at 59. But obviously there's another guy I like a little bit more at 59, and I know Zach likes him a lot as well. So Zach, let's get your opinion on Marcus Bowe from Purdue.
Yeah, he was my starred prospect for this whole preview position group because he was the most fun to watch. Like, everything about his technique is really with footwork too, and I thought that his quick moves was kind of Ronnie Stanley-esque. He had a little offensive tackle and interior O-line play, so I was impressed there. His quickness just flies off the board. It wasn't necessarily an awareness thing, but his quick moves and swallows up any quick pass rusher defender. So I loved that. His only downside was struggling against NFL level strength guys. So the Ohio States and Michigans that Purdue might have played, they tend to have their way with him. But I assume they had their way with all of Purdue. So On the other hand, I just like him as a fit for the Ravens, given his speed. I feel like that gives us a whole different look as a guard, I think, because someone like Falele, I think they value over a Voorhees, and if Falele is going to be all power, then I'd like someone that's all quickness and agility.
Yeah, I watched Bo, and he is also my number 4 guard. There's obviously a lot of concerns about size. Zach and I were talking about him right before we went on air. I was saying he looks like he runs like a 4.6 when he gets out in space. It's actually insane. He played guard in 22 and 23, right tackle this past season. I think he's fine in either scheme. And so he's 6'4", 303, right? That's relatively small, but I looked it up. McCary is 6'4", 305. So same exact height, 2 more pounds. So he's basically the same size as McCary. And you know what else I also thought to look up? Marshall Yanda, 6'3.5", 307.
Wow.
So I don't think the size is an issue. So I would love Bo at 59, obviously, if they don't go. O-line in round 1. So those are kind of the 2 guys in round 2, I would say. There's a guy of the name Tate Ratledge from Georgia. Maybe late round 2, early round 3, mid round 3. Dawson, I know you like him a lot. So take it away with Mr. Tate.
Yeah, I just wanted to backtrack real quick on Bo as well. I didn't watch much of him, I'll be honest. That was more so your guys' guy that you were scouting a lot. But I do say the little bit that I watched and read up on him and, kind of was checking out that he does pop off the screen. He's like awkwardly kind of quick. Like it's kind of like weird because you wouldn't think just seeing him. And then all of a sudden he takes off. And that's obviously, emphasis in the Ravens offense. I think they obviously want offensive linemen who can get out and move, given the kind of offense we run and the kind of players we have. I don't think they're going to prioritize getting a guy who's really slow. I think that I don't know their fathom with Daniel Falele. It is what it is. But speed is something that they like. But Tate Ratledge from Georgia, offensive guard, a guy that once again versatile. It's going to be all these offensive linemen that the Ravens are going to be intrigued with. Are probably going to be guys who can play all across the board just because they're looking to replace that Patrick McCary type role. And they also, given any injuries or anything, they like these guys. I know there's a little bit of trauma thinking about the Ben Cleveland selection a few years ago from Georgia, but I think this guy, Tate Ratledge, he's not the greatest of athletes. He's not like a guy who's going to pop off your screen and be a dynamic athlete by any means. He's a good pass blocker. He is pretty damn good in the run game. And I think this is a guy that when you're talking about, he's very raw. A lot of these guys, day 2 and back, are going to be guys who are not going to immediately come in and be day 1 starters. It's a very small world out there where you will find a guy like that. And I think the Ravens have the need at offensive line, of course, but it's not to the point where they're going to be marching out a day 2 or 3 selection as the starter week 1. But this is a guy that's raw. He has the measurables to be a really good starter in the NFL. I think that he can pretty much play anywhere you would want to play him. I do think he projects better as a guard. He played at Georgia, so he had tough competition. Like I said, he wasn't the greatest athlete. He doesn't have insane tape. He wasn't like an absolute dominant guard. But, I mean, if you can get this guy at, day 3, I've seen some projections where he's up in the 60s. So maybe there's a world out there where he's a choice at 59. I think it'd be better for the Ravens to potentially take him if he slips back into round 3. We know the Ravens have a ton of draft picks. They can make a move to get move up and get another selection of this draft closer. I hope they do that. And maybe this is a guy that can go after really any offensive line in general. I mean, the Ravens have the firepower to do it, and hopefully they do.
Any thoughts on Tate, Zach?
Sadly, I don't know if I was just out to get him or what, but I had some red flags for him. I thought that really these later guys had an issue with not an issue. They dominated in downhill blocking, getting out and then blocking in run schemes. But again, that's not a problem. It was just the only thing I found really well. Anytime they were blocking stronger, larger, longer D linemen, they were getting moved around a lot. So it makes sense that they're day 2 and day 3 guys. But Ratledge was kind of the first of a few more that I had just watched and everything that were struggling a little bit in keeping their ground, like really dominating one-on-one matchups. And again, I thought that he was kicking butt in the run game. It's just I didn't love his protection in pass pro.
I feel too that, just the whole point of a guy, if he excels in the run game and he's a little less in the pass game, I think that's going to intrigue the Ravens a little bit more. Obviously, we know that. So if you see a guy who, like Ratledge, if he's more superior in the run game, it could intrigue Baltimore to take him and,
For sure.
develop him elsewhere.
Yeah, I liked Ratledge. I feel, I'm kind of consensus on him. I feel like he's probably a early to mid round 3 guy. So like Dawson said, maybe a trade up with all the Ravens 5th and 6th round picks that they have. I'd say maybe a little rich for 59, but who knows?
Yeah.
So I had one more guy. Obviously, there's a ton of guys that we can't talk about, like 17 guards, but there's one more guy on day 2 that I watched. Charles Grant from William and Mary, probably a late third. So this could maybe be a pick 91 type of guy. 6'5" senior, 3'11", 34 and 3/4 inch arms, almost 35-inch arms. He was a wrestler in high school, so that's always something that adds value to me. Just knowing that they have that background. He has played tackle and guard, mainly tackle, but there's another guy that's probably going to play guard in the NFL. Really, really good athlete, good in space, long arms. This guy is kind of like Gray Zabel light, whereas he's dominating at William and Mary. But it's like, what can you do? Like, you're not going to draft this guy in the 1st round if he's dominating at William and Mary. North Dakota State is like much more of a football school. They're always in the FCS national championship or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Charles Grant would be a solid pick at 91, maybe in the 4th round. I think his technique is like a lot better than some of these Power 5 guards. It's really just the competition for me. Like if he played that good in the SEC, he'd be a 1st round pick. But obviously it's same thing as Zabel. It's hard to make that transition, and we'll sort of see how he can adjust. But I think that'd be a good pick for the Ravens, either late day 2 or early day 3. Do you guys, first of all, have any thoughts on him or any other day 2 guys you wanted to talk about?
Zach?
I
don't know if you're about to speak.
I wanted to talk about Luke Cantor from Cincinnati because I saw him as high up ranked for a late day 2. I thought he was like the perfect total athlete of a guard and dominance. And what was described from PFF as a fear factor. Like he was towering over guys and his strength was obvious. What I noticed in really all these later guys is very elite awareness as guards, like almost head on a swivel. And I love the idea of a guard having that, especially one for the Ravens with, Lamar being bouncing around in the pocket all the time. So Cantor was the first of, I have 4 day 3 guys, but only a couple of them match that same elite awareness on tape. And I think Cantor was the start of it. I just love that kind of a fit for the Ravens, given Lamar and given the offense.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about day 3 guards, tackles, anything across the offensive line, these are all guys that no one's really going to know. You never know the Ravens' plan, of course. Every draft, you get some random selection, and who knows, the guy's fighting for a roster spot come week 1. I didn't do a lot of research as far as the day 3 guys, just because in my eyes, there's a less than 1% chance that they are going to be selected by the Ravens. But of course, you always do your due diligence, as they do like those kind of players. Chase Lunt from Connecticut is probably the only guy that really bounced off the screen. He's got very intriguing length. The dude is a giant, and his movement for his physical frame is quite impressive. And he's pretty powerful at the point of attack. But the only thing I can emphasize on him is really the size of this man and his movement connects very well to, translating to the NFL, I feel like, in a specific offense, kind of much like the Daniel Falele. And I know we're not the biggest fan of him. That's kind of why we're having this podcast. But just the sheer aspect of like Falele got drafted as a tackle out of Minnesota. He's a giant human being. And obviously he translated into a guard in the NFL. I feel like Chase Lunt's kind of similar to that trajectory. I think that's where he's kind of going. But again, this is a day 3 selection. This is just going to be a needle in a haystack. The Ravens are going to take a flyer on somebody, whether it's tackle or guard. I don't really care at this point for day 3, just because, I don't want to say anything bad or put that bad juju in the air, but you still want to have a backup plan to tackle. I know Ronnie and Roger are kind of the two workhorses out there, but you never know. The NFL is a scary world out there. You can lose either one of those guys in a second. I would love to have a backup plan, or at least have a younger guy underneath them to kind of develop and hopefully insert into that spot when the bad time, unfortunately, if or when it does occur. But Chase Lunt from Connecticut, man, I think it would be a very interesting flyer.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned him because I watched Lunt too a little bit. I think he probably projects as a tackle. So I think he's probably going to be, if the Ravens draft him, it'll be like that number 3 tackle kind of. He was a 6th-year senior, so he was in college in 2019. But I will say, so 2019 was a red shirt, and then 2020 UConn canceled their football season because of COVID. So It's not really his fault that he was a 6th year. He only played 4 years. Yeah, Dawson, like you mentioned, he's almost 6'8". He's 304.
Yeah, he's a massive human being.
Yeah, 49 starts at right tackle. That's over 3,000 snaps. I think he's pretty good technique. Obviously, things to work on. His arms are a little short, actually, for how tall he is, which, like you said, maybe that could be a reason he ends up playing guard. Not great, like, agility, but, he's 6'8". So I don't know if he's, 24 or whatever, but we'll see about him. Zach, what guys are you looking at for day 3?
Well, I have 4 names. I'll try and go through them quickly because I said like one.
If you, yeah, go ahead.
So Willie Lampkin, we had really
Yeah.
in names for the mock draft, and we were like, oh, okay, Willie Lampkin, we've heard about him. And this was the first time I got to watch him. It was, all scouts are pretty highly speaking of him. Like, there's not really that bad besides his size. So one quote was 5 years of outstanding college tape under his belt. 5 years of it, according to PFF. Another one was his energy and effort are obvious, so it still gives him a chance for a team to take a chance on him, but his size was the basically common denominator of making him a day 3 guy. So I don't know if you guys wanted to touch on him really quick, or...
Yeah, I watched, I don't know how it happened, but I was somehow watching a video on Will Lampkin, like his film, without knowing his size. And like he did look small, but then I looked it up and he's 5'10", 270. And like that's like 300 pounds is small. Like Linderbaum is almost 300 pounds and he's considered small. So I really don't know if it would work. He's like quick. Was this a guy that was catching passes at the combine? I can't remember if it was or not, but I think Mel Kiper's talked about like he could be a elite fullback. So what, like, I think he was basically saying that like someone should take this guy in the 6th or 7th round and just like get him on your team and like see what he can do, whether it's fullback or guard or center. I think he could be a fun like 6th or 7th round pick.
It'd be funny. Get the Patrick Ricard treatment, draft as a D-line, but offensive line of the space and flip the fullback.
Yeah.
Another one I had was Connor Colby of Iowa. Offensive linemen from Iowa always seem to catch my eye. I mean, you get Tyler Lindenbaum, Tristan Wirfs, Brandon Sheriff. Yana was Iowa too, right? Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like automatically I'm like, do I need to watch this guy? He definitely has the energy for it. It's just he was really worrisome with what I was talking about earlier and what I wanted from an offensive lineman, which was awareness. He was just kind of staring down the middle, which, hopefully gives him a chance to be a gem if he's going to be a later guard because it's Iowa, but, still rooting for him. Miles Frazier, one of the guys we took in the mock drafts, might have been the most aware blocker I did watch. And for a late guy, I was just impressed seeing that and thought he was really good at scrambling situations. LSU always tends to have a quarterback that gets around in the pocket a lot. Jack Conley of Boston College, he played offensive line tackle and guard. 6'8", 280. He's like Zion Williamson size, if my NBA fans out there. But yeah, I thought he was impressive to watch.
That's funny. I think that's crazy.
6'8", 280.
Yeah, isn't that a crazy freaking, like,
oh my God.
You should be playing power forward somewhere.
Yeah.
That's a crazy build. Get this guy on the team as an athlete.
Yeah.
I think Miles Frazier's teammate, Emory Jones Jr. at LSU, this is a guy that played majority tackle, but they're kind of translating him into guard. There were some flaws at tackle, but I think that, this guy is a very raw prospect. A lot of these guys are. It's kind of the trend. There's specific traits that they're good at, some that they're not. But this is kind of just a late round flyer guy that kind of his tape jumped off. He was a force, and he did, play in a really tough program down there against really good opponents, which Brad kind of emphasizes an important part as far as scouting and, seeing where players play. Sometimes it's a knock on them, sometimes it can't be. But I think that, anywhere day 3 of the Ravens go as far as offensive line, we're going to have to get behind. But I think there's definitely a lot of intriguing options, but you never know how this team's thinking. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I have 2 other guys that you guys didn't mention, and like I said, if the Ravens end up drafting any of these guys, that'd be pretty cool. So we can go back and look at them.
That's true.
Jackson Slater, Sacramento State, probably a 4th or 5th round guy, 6'3", 311. He was 42 starts at left guard. Looked really, really good. Big knee injury in November. These colleges don't have to release like what actually happened. So all you can find is significant knee injury for Jackson Slater in November, which is probably a torn ACL, I would assume. I don't know what else it would be. He's not like ultra athletic, but I think he has like a pretty high floor for at least where you could draft him. Maybe like a solid backup, maybe eventual starter in the league. Not super agile, but I liked him a lot. And then one more guy, more of a tackle, I think similar to Chase Lunt, Jalen Travis, Iowa State, 5th-year senior, 6'8", 340, 35-inch arms. So pretty crazy size. 4 years at Princeton. They also had no football in 2020, so really 3 years at Princeton, and then transferred to Iowa State for his 5th year. He started at right tackle and left tackle, super long arms, big hands, nice grip strength. Doesn't really look natural, I would say, or flowy, but I feel kind of bad saying that about someone who's 6'8", 340. But I feel like he's good and pretty good in the run game, and probably another possible late round pick for the Ravens.
Real quick, I should have a hypothetical question. As far as late round guys, whether it's guard or tackle, what kind of player do you think the Ravens are going to prioritize? Do you think they're going to look for size, speed, just athlete, they love those athletic guys, but what do you think?
It's hard to say because they kind of change these things as time moves on. Like the Odafe Owe pick, I know this is edge, was so surprising because they had never done something like that where you're kind of betting on traits. Right. I don't know. I feel like if you're going for a tackle, trying to draft that number 3 tackle, I feel like you should try to go with someone who's already kind of solid. Maybe the UConn Chase Lunt that we talked about. I don't know. Maybe if you're taking a guard late, you're going for talent. Maybe you take a guard in round 2 and then another one in round 6. And that round 6 guy is someone who you think is super talented and hasn't put it together yet. I don't know. That's kind of how I would do it.
It kind of scares me because I don't who are we to speak, but I feel like I would much rather the Ravens take, again, whether it's tackle or guard late round, we're talking rounds 3 through 7. I prefer them to take a guy who's how do I say this? Solidified in one position specifically, more so than guard and tackle, and has proof on tape, the previous 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, whatever it is. I want to see a full season's worth of tape at one position and a guy who's played in a tough program with tough competition, basically where we're bringing him in and we're keeping him where he's at. I know the Ravens love the versatility, but I don't know if I like the whole aspect of drafting a tackle, switching the guard, vice versa, or a guy who, he's got great measurables, but he's never done anything on the field. It's I'd much rather them take a guy who's already kind of proven himself a little bit at one position specifically, and he knows where he's going to play. I don't know. It's just kind of how I feel, but it is a hypothetical world where it's the Ravens could go straight after measurables, which they've done countless times in the past, and sometimes it works, sometimes it bombs. I don't know.
It's interesting when you're in win now mode because you could look at it one way where it's we're already a great team. We can bet on traits with someone. or you look at it like we're so close, we should get someone who can contribute. Like
Yeah.
there's really two different ways to look at it.
Well, it's also like, how many offensive linemen do you think they'll take in this draft?
I would say
2 or 3. I mean,
two.
obviously
Gotta be
2.
two.
If I
Gotta be
had to,
two,
I
right?
think a nice over under would be 2.5 or
Mhm.
1.5.
I mean, it all depends on
2.5,
how many selections we take of our 12 draft picks,
Yeah.
or 11 or 12 draft picks. But like,
Uh,
I think they could take 3.
Yeah.
It's like if you think about it, I mean, like the guys on the roster, we got the starting 5 right now, which I would plug in Voorhees and Falele at left and right. And then it's like who after them, you don't really got quality depth. I don't think you're relying on the other guys. So I think they can take like 3 offensive linemen in this draft.
I think they only have 6 guys on the roster. I think the only backup
I was
they
trying
have,
to think of the depth pieces, and I literally could not.
I know Nick Samak is there. The backup.
Okay, he's kind of
Yeah.
like the backup center.
But I can't think of any. I think it's 6
Right.
guys. And they usually keep
So-
9 or 10. So
Right. And I don't think they're just going to sign a bunch of old veteran free agents.
Could be
So
the
I
draft.
think you can legitimately take like 3 offensive
3.
linemen.
2.5 is a good line.
I would
say
take
that.
the over. I would.
Okay, I guess one more question for you guys. We'll start with Zach. So in terms of like draft position and guy you want, pick one guy. Like let's say Booker at 27, Bo at 59. What's like the one guy you want at a specific spot?
Ooh. I think
Ooh.
after watching Bo, I think I'd love him as a day 2 guy. Other than that, I shockingly was pretty similar in thought to my mock. I going into the mock, I was like, you know what? Let's get some defense, help them out. Maybe the offensive line will just fall to us. And I think that the Ravens can bet on, the traits like you guys mentioned, like seeing a guy that can be dominant in one side of traits in an offensive lineman that you want as a backup, because that's all he's going to be. Hopefully. I mean, hopefully he's more than that. But I mean, I think that someone like Booker is a free throw. That's easy. I think someone like Bo as a second rounder, free throw again. But I like taking a chance on someone like a Ratledge if he falls and we trade up a little bit, or a Colby or a Frazier really later on, given that they have one side to them that seems like it could be NFL ready. And the only thing that you have to do is let them be in NFL practices and NFL conditioning and see if that helps them out. I look at more of the second round, maybe. I'm looking also as a second rounder for maybe even a safety, but I think it's kind of a competition between those positions, almost secondary and guard for that spot.
I think if you're going to ask me as far as all the offensive linemen in this class, the one specifically that I'd be the happiest with, or, I'm looking at the most, has to be Tyler Booker at 27. I think Gray Zabel's right behind him. I don't think there's a significant gap between them. So like I said, if we pick Zabel, I'm not upset, but, I'm like, oh man, could I Tyler Booker? But I think these are at 27. There's a lot of, mockery of who's going to be there. And, with edge, cornerback, safety, defensive line, there's going to be a lot of intriguing options for the Ravens. We know this. But I think, I legitimately think Tyler Booker is the safest pick. Because with all other of these guys, James Pierce or, Harmon or, Nolan or, whoever, all these other guys that are mocked at other positions, I think the biggest, how do I say, the highest ceiling, highest floor, is that what it'd be? Would be Tyler Booker.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would just be a home run pick. I don't think there's any downside to doing it. I don't really know your alternative plan other than Booker if you don't take or any guy in round 1, really. I'm not for marching Falele back out there with Voorhees. I'd rather have one competition spot across the line rather than 2. I just think it's the safest pick. I think it's a pick that would intrigue the Ravens big time with the Alabama pipeline. And I think he's got to be high on the draft board. And I would be absolutely thrilled to see him at right guard week 1.
Yeah, I would too. You know what's funny that I was just thinking about? The Ravens always draft 2 tight ends, and the second one is always better than the first one. Hurst and Andrews, Kolar, and Likely. I wonder if the Ravens go like round 2 guard and then like round 5 guard, and the round 5 guard turns out to be like a really good player.
Mm-hmm.
And round 2 guys like a bust. That'd be kind of funny. I guess you'd rather both of them be good, but I was just thinking about that. Yeah, I think Any other final thoughts?
I think so.
Dawson's just really hoping for Booker at 27.
I just I'm just so with the idea of building the wall in front of Lamar Jackson with this offense. Like I know it's such a boring pick and they're not fun to talk about, but like it's just so safe, especially in round one. A guy from Alabama who's played the toughest competition, the best guard, in the draft, the consensus #1 guy. It's like it's so intriguing, dude, because if Derrick Henry comes over last year, obviously we were great. We had, they put up amazing production. The offensive line overall wasn't awful, but it's like you can just make it so much better. Because the weakest link across the offensive line last year was Falele. And it's like now you push him aside and insert a round one guy. It's like, dude, it could just be so much better. And it just intrigues me so much. And it's like, obviously we have needs at edge and you can take a safety or interior D line or a corner, but it's like you put in a right guard, man. It's Super Bowl time.
Yeah. If you think about like Stanley, like Voorhees year 2 off an injury, and like I said, he looked really good week 18 when he played against the Browns. Linderbaum, like really good rookie right guard, and then Rosengarten, like that is an elite offensive line.
I would love that. It would be the best. It had to be the best one we've had in the Lamar era. It has to be. I mean, 2019 was really good. 2019 was really good, but like this would rival it.
Has the potential, yeah.
It could rival it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all we have for you guys today in terms of offensive line. We appreciate you guys for watching. Thanks for all the love and support. Draft season is obviously quickly approaching. So be sure to like and subscribe to keep up with all the content. If you'd rather listen on Spotify, links in the description. And yeah, hope you guys have a good rest of your week. We'll probably be releasing an episode about, I believe, edge rushers. Probably the most exciting one we'll do. That'll probably go out on Friday or Saturday. And yeah, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.